Way back in episode 94 of the Random Trade Review, we covered a book called Abyss from a writer named Kevin Rubio, who first came to fame after directing a Star Wars fan film called Troops.
The film, which followed a team of Imperial stormtroopers tasked with locating R2-D2 and C-3PO, and thus the stolen Death Star battle plans, was a parody of the television show Cops, and was so warmly received that even George Lucas himself would proclaim the film canon.
Disney, on the other hand, is probably a different situation altogether.
The relationship with Lucas caused Dark Horse Comics, who at the time held the Star Wars comic book license, to ask Rubio for a humorous comic to be released shortly before Episode 2 Attack of the Clones was released in theaters.
Rubio came up with a concept that drew inspiration from both Star Wars and Shakespeare, taking inspiration from the Bard's most famous play, Hamlet.
In the play, the mind games between Hamlet and his uncle Claudius would envelop two of the prince's childhood friends named Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. On a diplomatic trip to England with his friends, Hamlet discovers that the two were carrying a note from Claudius, charging the young prince with treason and calling for his immediate execution. No longer trusting Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and with no other choice, Hamlet quickly rewrote the letter to change the charges to be on Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, with Claudius soon being notified that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
In 1966, playwright Tom Stoppard would develop a metatextual absurdist comedy called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which followed the exploits of the two titular characters while Hamlet played out in the background.
Upon embarking on their fateful trip to Britain, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern discover a metatextual twist and not only realize what's happened with the letter, but also that they are in a play and destined to be killed. The two then spend the rest of the story in a vainly futile attempt to avert their fates as Hamlet continues to play out in the background.
Rubio would use Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead for the basis of a story following two minor characters while the major events of Star Wars played out in the background. In a way, there's already a precedent for this in the franchise. After all, what is Episode 4 but following two minor characters in C-3PO and R2-D2 as the major events kind of play out in the background for the first act? Though initially a two-issue series, there would actually be a follow-up released shortly around the time that Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, hit theaters. And today we're looking at the complete exploits of Tag Greenlee and Bink Otana. This is Star Wars Presents Tag and Bink Were Here.
A long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, an Imperial Star Destroyer attacks a small diplomatic freighter believed to be carrying the stolen blueprints for the Death Star. As droids C-3PO and R2-D2 look for a safe place to hide, they wind up running into two defenders of the ship who overslept. These defenders are Tag Greenlee of Corellia and Bink Otana of Alderaan, and they are not very good at their job as they immediately chicken out of the ensuing firefight. Tag and Bink attempt to hide, only to be outed by C-3PO, who's looking for R2-D2. Tag swears vengeance on the droid as the two are taken hostage. However, Bink manages to come up with a plan that allows Tag and him to overpower their captors and steal their uniforms. This results in the two basically getting a free ride right back to the Death Star. The two struggle to move about the battle station as stormtrooper helmets contain absolutely no peripheral vision, but eventually they happen across the TIE Fighter bay. Bink decides this is the perfect plan for escape as they can just steal a couple TIE Fighters and head back home to Alderaan, which fortunately just popped up on the view screen.
I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? Oops.
The shockwave that somehow managed to travel through the vacuum of space winds up throwing Tag and Bink's fighters off course and straight into the Millennium Falcon. Added to that, the radio signal is so mucked up that when Bink tells Tag to stay away from the Death Star, he instead hears to head back, thus leading Han Solo and the others on board. Tag and Bink return to guard duty on notice, where they fail to pick up Obi-Wan Kenobi, disabling the tractor beam controls and get confined to quarters. This proves to be enough of a tipping point that allows the two to try a second escape attempt, just as the Battle of Yavin is about to commence. Which means that Darth Vader winds up drafting the two to be his patrol escort into the exhaust trench alongside him.
You pretty much know the rest from here. Vader chases down Luke in the trench until Han Solo arrives, takes out his escort, enabling Luke to finally bring down the Death Star once and for all. So it looks like Tag and Bink are dead. Or are they?
In reality, Tag and Bink manage to slip away by switching places with two other fighter pilots who wind up escorting Vader in the trench. Instead, they wind up stealing a scout shuttle, the Tidarium, and pilot it down to Yavin just as the Death Star explodes, resulting in more physics-defying shock waves that wind up disabling the ship's hyperdrive. The ship is damaged to the point that it actually takes the two 3 months to actually get to Yavin, which means everyone is already cleared out by then. Not to mention, Chewbacca somehow dropped his rewarded medal.
And Chewie still won't get it back until Maz Kanata returns it at the end of Rise of Skywalker.
This is for you.
Man, J.J. Abrams forced way too much into those movies.
Tang and Bink suddenly wind up in the shootout with none other than Boba Fett, who's obviously trying to collect the bounty that Jabba the Hutt placed on Han Solo. The two ultimately wind up bringing down a large pillar on the bounty hunter, and thus they are able to negotiate repairs to their hyperdrive in exchange for free passage. From there, Tang and Bink will need a new resting place apart from both the Empire and the Rebellion, like, say, the Cloud City mining facility on Bespin. The two are able to get clearance as it turned out that Tag had actually used his exploits in the Battle of Tanab to cover for Lando after he stood up Tag's sister on a date. That being said, Boba Fett's arrival, along with the Empire, throws a wrench into things. On the plus side, Tag does finally get his revenge on C-3PO. That being said, Lando does ask an additional favor as he wants them to shadow Leia and Chewbacca in case they are needed as leverage.
Okay, bit of an explanation time for the poster that's on Lando's wall here. See, beginning in the 1980s, Lando's performer, Billy D. Williams, became the spokesperson for Colt 45 Malt Liquor.
Billy D. Williams talks about the power of Colt 45.
You know, I've always heard about the power of Colt 45, but I was never sure exactly what that meant, so I got some, found out for myself.
Hey, Billy, you free tonight?
Works every time.
The power of Colt 45. It works every time.
Now, the joke here is that it's actually a poster for a rival malt liquor brand, Schlitz Malt Liquor, whose advertising often featured its drinkers being attacked by a comically large bull that would crash through a wall.
Say fear, say bull. Say Schlitz Malt Liquor bull.
Coincidentally, both these malt liquor companies are now owned by Pabst.
Tag and Bink do their best until Chewbacca throws Tag down the shaft of the carbonite facility, and this proves enough for Tag and Bink to cut their losses once more and just clear out of there. However, they do wind up turning over the Scout Shuttle Tidarium to the Rebel Alliance, while Boba Fett continues his pursuit of the two. A short while later, Tag and Bink are dispatched to help aid Lando in tracking down Boba Fett and Han Solo, by which I mean chaperone Lando on his date. On the plus side, the date is actually the contact that they needed, who knows where Boba Fett's fueling habits tend to be, due to her being his ex-girlfriend. When the bounty hunter arrives, it turns out he's already made the drop-off on Tatooine, so Lando knocks him out and Tag winds up donning the Mandalorian armor. This is all part of the plan by Princess Leia, who is undercover as the bounty hunter Boushh, to free Han by turning over Chewbacca in order to collect the bounty on him. Obviously that doesn't work, so then Luke Skywalker is called in. Naturally, that also winds up falling apart, and this all results in Tag accidentally being knocked in the Sarlacc pit by Han Solo. Bink then accidentally shoots Luke in his arm and gets tossed on his own. Thankfully, the two are rescued by Kanan, that's Boba Fett's ex-girlfriend who was providing them the information earlier, who thought that she had finally tracked down the deadbeat bounty hunter.
Now, this story actually has an alternate opening that appeared in the anthology comic Star Wars Tales. Basically, they ditched the whole stalker ex-girlfriend of Boba Fett plot and instead just had Lando knock Boba out at the station, realize they had already dropped Han off, and then an underwear-clad Boba Fett winds up rescuing Tag and Bink from the Sarlacc pit. Obviously, recent television series have completely eliminated the canonical aspects of this story.
There are more pressing matters, as Kanan has someone who needs transferred to the Rebel rendezvous point. It's none other than A-Spy Manuel Bothans, or Manny to his friends. He has very pertinent information about the new Death Star, however this all gets interrupted by Boba Fett, who's seeking revenge on those who stole all of his stuff. Everyone tries to bolt to the Scout Shuttle Tidarium. Unfortunately, in the process, Bothans is shot, and Mon Mothma must break the news.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Yes, they really did go a long way for that joke.
Tag and Bink are tasked with turning over Manny's body to the Empire to hopefully throw them off the Rebel scent. To do so, they wind up impersonating Palpatine's personal guards, which means a whole lot of standing around with no bathroom breaks until Darth Vader brings Luke Skywalker on board. Unfortunately, they get lost just as the big fight between Luke and Vader finally breaks out, and the two eventually try to bolt right when Vader finally turns on Palpatine and throws him down the energy shaft to his apparent death. The next thing Tag and Bink know, they're looking on as the Ewoks celebrate on the forest moon of Endor. They didn't actually get off the Death Star, though. They were actually watching via their Force ghosts.
Wait a minute. Force ghosts? I guess this necessitates a prequel story.
In the legend of Darth Plagueis the Wise, it is said that he was so in tune with the dark side of the Force that he could will the midichlorians to create life. Though there were side effects, as two Force-sensitive individuals on Corellia and Alderaan Yes, Tang and Bink were also born as a result of this. Also, at another point in the galaxy, a planet became so unstable that it exploded, with one lone infant-carrying rocket blasting away to a backwater planet called Earth. However, that's actually owned by a different company, so we're not allowed to talk about it beyond this point. Tang and Bink are taken in by the Jedi, but it's not exactly smooth sailing, as it turns out they really just have the bare minimum amount of midichlorians to qualify for training. Things get even worse when Bink accidentally deletes several files pertaining to the planet Kamino just as Obi-Wan Kenobi needed them. The two duck into a nearby diner as Order 63 is called out, and Jango Fett explains that if his son/clone Boba Fett had actually been in this situation, he would expect him to owe up for his actions as Order 64 is called up. As Order 65 is called, Jango elaborates that he would be disappointed, but he would at least respect his son for owning up to his mistakes. It's then that Order 66 is called up, and all hell begins to break loose.
Okay, I get the joke here, but in a way, this really doesn't make that much sense. Jango Fett's not a clone. Why would he have Order 66 encoded into his DNA?
Hell-bent on killing all Jedi, Jango chases Tang and Bink down onto a passenger ship where they immediately spot Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. The two have picked up on Annie's forbidden feelings for the Senator and are willing to give him some help as long as he covers for their little mistakes earlier. It doesn't work right away, as Anakin for some reason decided to wing it with his whole "I hate sand" speech, but eventually Padme wears down. However, the next day, Anakin and Padme are off to Tatooine, leaving Tang and Bink behind to fend for themselves and try to make it back to Coruscant. Due to the combination of the war and the ability to gain any type of vehicle with a hyperdrive, it winds up taking 3 years for them to return, and they arrive just as the newly rechristened Darth Vader is assaulting the Jedi Temple. As an apparent make-good, Darth Vader cuts off Tang and Bink's Padawan hair braids and tells them to immediately go into hiding, abandon all Jedi training, and pray they never ever cross paths with him ever again. So the two decide to head off to a quiet little place called Tatooine, where nothing has ever been known to happen ever.
Now, there have been rumors that Tang and Bink will eventually make their way into the official Star Wars canon. They were originally supposed to have a scene in Solo, a Star Wars story, but it got deleted, and Rubio himself has actually supported a theory that Tang and Bink were the two innocent bystander stormtroopers who got caught up in Kylo Ren's temper tantrum during The Force Awakens. I'm not so entirely sure about that last part. I mean, again, the comic clearly shows that they got killed during the events of Return of the Jedi, so I don't know how that could possibly be them. But still, that does conclude our look at Star Wars. Tang and Bink, we're here. How was it? Well, I do think there's some great humor in this story. I think even if you're a Star Wars novice, you're going to get most of the jokes in this. You're going to get a lot of stuff like, again, Chewbacca's missing metal and all that stuff. So, again, none of the jokes are going to be really too inside baseball for anyone. There's some decent artwork, and I do think weaving in and out of the main story of Star Wars is done pretty deftly. And, of course, there are some MST3K references, and that's always a bonus. If there is a drawback, I would say the character of Bink Otana is kind of underutilized. I get that he's the straight man of the duo, but yeah, most of his stuff is just him kind of whining about wanting to go back to Alderaan and just, not be involved in the rebellion at all. That's really it. And this last one's kind of a minor quibble, but again, obviously recent events in several Star Wars stories have kind of undone a lot of this series, but still, overall, like I said, that's a minor quibble. This is a really fun book. I am going to give Star Wars Tang and Bink We're Here an A. Like I said, even if you're a Star Wars novice, none of the stuff is going to be too inside baseball. You're going to get a lot of the jokes in this. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Hey guys, remember you can help support the channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcat productions. There you can request a tray to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. And as always, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.